So good morning, everyone. So today I will present about Unit 15, English sentence structure about that clauses. Okay, let's get started. So in this unit, we go to the grammar in the real world. So it is reading text, cultural values. So you can answer some question related to the reading text. So grammar in the real world, is it possible to identify typical American values? Theories exist about the values Americans hold today and why. Then read the article about one view of American values and you can give your response or point of view. Do you agree with the writer's point of view? Okay, let me start with the reading text about US cultural values. Okay, Dian Siti, can you read the first and the second paragraphs?
Yes, ma'am. U.S. cultural values. Values are beliefs held in common by members of a group. They often come from shared experiences. For example, some historians assert that the settlement of the American West in the 19th century shaped many American values. These include the importance of hard work, optimism, and individualism. Countless U.S. children have learned in school that hard work is essential. In fact, many Americans believe that they must work hard in order to be happy. How did this belief develop? According to some researchers, as Americans moved deeper into the continent, they discovered that the West was mostly wilderness. Their lives were difficult and they had to work hard to survive. Some historians are convinced that their success helped form a general belief in the value of hard work.
Yeah, okay, next. The third and the fourth paragraph, Shazda.
Furthermore, many Americans believe that they should have a positive view of the future. A few historians suggest that this perspective helped put men on the moon. What is the origin of this optimism? Some research suggests that struggles on the frontier encouraged this attitude. People found that they could survive even in difficult situations. Another common belief about Americans is that they are individualistic. Traditionally, American children have learned that they are responsible for their own lives. This way of thinking supports the idea that every person can succeed through hard work. In addition, Americans tend to believe that they can start over when they make mistakes. Why do they feel this way? It is the belief of some historians that this idea developed as a result of the frontier life. Because there were few towns and traditions, settlers created their own rules. Each new settlement developed its own ways of getting things done. When settlements faced problems, they had no choice but to try new and different approaches.
Yes, okay, the last paragraph, Masita.
Okay, ma'am. Not all historians agree that frontier life influenced modern American values. Furthermore, the United States is becoming more and more culturally diverse all the time. Undoubtedly, this is already affecting the values held by its citizens. In what way might American values change?
Okay, so that's all reading text about cultural values, US cultural values. So in this reading text, we find some sentences that relates to or belongs to that clauses. For example, the bold sentence, that this idea developed as a result of frontier life. So it is the belief of some historians that this idea developed as a result of frontier life. So that this idea developed as a result of frontier life is that clauses, the example of that clauses. Okay, next. We focus on grammar presentation. So that clauses, how to form the clauses, yeah. 2.1, forming that clauses. And I will ask to read. Nur Hamimah ada?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can read point A and B.
Forming that clauses. That clauses have their own subject and verb. For example, many Americans think that everyone can succeed. The main clause is many American. The verb is think, and that clause that anyone can succeed is subject and verb. B, in conversation and informal writing, that is often omitted. In academic writing, that is usually not omitted. Example,
Yes.
most people recognize cooperation is important. Informal. Most people recognize that cooperation is important. Formal.
Yes, so actually non-clauses function like nouns in a sentence, and they often begin with the word that. For example, many people believe that they must work hard in order to be happy. And 2.1, how to form that clauses. So as mentioned that clauses have their own subject and verb. For example, many Americans think that anyone can succeed. And in conversation, it is the use of that is informal, yeah, and it is different with the academic writing. So, for example, most people recognize that cooperation is important. Okay, next. In conversation and informal writing, that is often omitted, but in academic writing, that is usually not omitted tadi ya. So, okay, now 2.2, using that clauses. Who wants to read? Okay, let me ask Dia Siska ada?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, silakan.
Using that
2.2.
clauses. Use that clause after the following verb that express mental activity, like assume, believe, decide, discover, expect, feel, find out, guess, hear, hope, imagine, know, learn, notice, read, realize, recognize, say, see, show, suppose, think, understand. For example, can we assume that the core values have remained basically the same? Some people believe that hard work brings happiness. I've discovered that some cultures don't have a positive view of the future. I read that American value developed during the colonial period.
Yeah. Okay, so using that clauses, there are some verbs that express mental activity, for example, or such as assume, believe, decide, discover, expect, feel, find out, guess, hear, hope, imagine, know, learn, notice, read, realize, recognize, say, see, show, suppose, think, and understand. And the example is, can we assume that the core values have remained basically the same? And then the second example, some people believe that hard work brings happiness. Okay, next. This is grammar application. Exercise 2.1 will be presented by group 2. So you can combine the sentences about employees in the United States by using that clauses. Number 1 has gone for you. So many Americans notice something. They are working harder but have less money. So the answer is many Americans notice that they are working harder but have less money. And then next we have agreement between that clause and main clauses. So in this case, that clauses in sentence with present verb in the main. So now point A, when the main clause is in the present, use a present form in that clause to express a fact or general truth. For example, many Americans feel that nothing is important. And the second example, some cultures think that cooperation is very important. And then point B, when the main clause is in the present, use past form in the that clause to describe a past event. For example, some historians do not or don't think that early American history influenced American culture. And point C, when the main clause is in the present, use a future form in that clause to describe a future event. So the example, I assume that you are going to do more. Okay, now that clauses in the sentence with past verb in the main clause. Point A, when the main clause is in the past, use a past form in the that clause to describe an event or idea that happened at the same time as the event in the main clause. For example, 19th century Americans knew that hard work is necessary. And then so the first example, 19th century American knew that hard work was necessary. And then the second example, my professor noticed that many students were about the 19th century. And then point B, when the main clause is in the past, use a past present form in that clause to express a universal truth or a fact that applies to the present. For example, who discovered that the earth is round? And then scientists discovered that DNA holds the code. And then when I started living on my own, I found out that sometimes very hard. Okay, now 3.2. Point C, use the past perfect or past perfect progressive when the event in the that clause happened before the event in the main clause. For example, I discovered that she had been copying my history research for years. And then the second example, I heard that she had failed the test. Point D, use would or was or were going to when the event of that clause happened after the event of the main clause. For example, I heard that a famous historian will be speak in the conference. And the last example, we discovered that we were going to study 20th century history. Okay, now for point 1, that clauses after adjective. Point A, you can use a that clause after adjectives that express certainty or emotion. For example, I'm certain that I haven't read enough about American culture. The second example, the conference organizers were pleased that he accepted the invention. Next, point B, you can use that clauses after it plus B plus certain adjective. These adjectives often express emotion or degrees of certainty. They include certain, clear, evident, or fortunate, interesting, or likely, surprising, and understandable. You can look at the example. It is evident that many other cultures have influenced US culture. The second example, it is unfortunate that many students don't know more about their country's history. And it is unlikely that we'll finish the unit by the next class. And the last example, it is understandable that historians disagree about the development of cultural values. So in this case, you can use that clauses to show or to make a hedging, yeah, to give emotion or degree of certainty. And the next part is 4.2, that clauses after nouns. Point A, you can use that clauses after nouns that express thoughts and ideas such as belief, feeling, impression, and possibility. For example, it was our impression that the historian was wrong. The second example, there was no possibility that he was going to convince us. And point B, you can use noun plus B plus that clause with this commonly used noun. Concern, difference, hope, idea, impression, point, problem, saying, and views. The example, the concern was that we would never find out the truth. And then the second example, the point is that the United States is a very large country. And the last example, the problem is that very individualistic people can find it hard to work in a group. Okay, thank you very much. Now I want to share screen about the exercises. Okay, today Group 2 will present. Are you ready? Group 2? Who will be responsible for the host?
Rifki Fauzan.
Rifki, yeah. Okay, I will find Rifki. Yes, silakan. Group 2, you can start the presentation. Yes. There is unit 18. Ya, silakan. Who will be the moderator?
Okay, everyone, is my voice clear?
Yes, your voice is clear now.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So we are from Group 2. We'll presented our exercise on that clauses. Next slide, please.
Sorry, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Now I will read our answer for exercise 4.1. That clause after adjective. U.S. culture and the world. Number 1, suspects are studying culture and they have expressed some concern. They are that U.S. culture may have a negative effect on global culture. Number 2, why are they worried? Some people are worried that Americanization is making everything the same. Number 3, why do they think this? They are aware that Hollywood and fast food chains are influencing culture. Next. Number 4, what's your opinion? I am convinced that culture is a two-way street. Number 5, why do you think that? I am positive that other culture influence U.S. culture as much as U.S. culture influence them. Number 6, can you give some examples? A lot of people are surprised that the French invented movies. Number 7, what else? They are surprised that the British invented one original fish and chips. Number 8, so what can we conclude? I am sure that we all benefit from global cultural exchange.
So this is 4.2, that clauses after nouns and adjective. For number 1, it is the example. It is my belief that U.S. culture is in some ways a good thing and is some ways a bad thing. For number 2, it is our feeling that most people outside the United States have favorable opinions of United States pop culture, even though at the same time, they also worry that this culture would give a bad influence. And for the third number, it is our group's impression that most people outside the United States have good feelings about American fast food restaurant opening up in cities around the world. And there's the B part, over to you. That I wrote 3 sentences about the survey result here. And our opinion is we are surprised that most people think US popular culture is somewhat favorable. And 2, we are surprised that there's only 1% people who are not answering the survey. And the third one, we are not surprised that most of people have mixed opinions about US popular culture.
So for the editing task, we found some mistakes. They knew that the trip will take years and that some people lose their lives. And then when Simons and his group reached Oregon, he announced that they were going to continue north. And however, Simons was certain that the trip was going to be successful and he didn't listen. So for the revised paragraph is settlers from the east who traveled across the American West in the mid-19th century understood that they faced a difficult journey across deserts and mountains. They knew that the trip would take years and that some people would lose their lives. However, they were optimistic. Michael T. Simmons was one of those determined travelers. Someone told him to go to the Pacific Northwest for new opportunities. He sold his business to pay for the supplies that he and his family needed. He knew that the area was largely unknown. He also knew that that was dangerous. This didn't stop him. When Simmons and his group reached Oregon, he announced that they were going to continue north. The Hudson's Bay Trading Company heard the news, and they discouraged him. However, Simmons was certain that the trip was going to be successful, and he didn't listen. Instead, he continued north as planned. After he arrived, he helped to establish the first settlement in the territory that is now known as Washington State. Documents show that Simmons built the first mill using water from the Tumwater waterfall for power. For this, he is sometimes called the father of Washington industry. Thank you. Is there any questions?